Hi guys, this is my AFS homework 2. So for question 1, I'm going to start with answering my most important things I thought were in the module. I think the most important is just understanding a full concept of imperialism. Through the readings, I found that imperialism is really what's uprooted all the racism, slave trade, etc., because imperialism focuses on the point of dominating a weaker nation oftentimes, such as the Spanish dominating the Americas and those indigenous people there. And that the second most important point is colonialism, that after imperialism and colonialism coincide because colonialism is those going in and placing their settlements on these areas that they have dominated. I think the third most important idea is just understanding different parts of aspects of the African trade and all they had to suffer and how this exploited racism, this was a money game, this was just so changing to like our world today, and knowing the history behind that. And one question I have is, if Africa was a rich and growing countries such as Spain, could they have colonized the Spanish or vice versa and changed that history type of definition? Question number 2, the transatlantic slave trade was involved by transporters of people and slave traders of the Africans, and they took about 12 to 15 million Africans from the Western Hemisphere during this time. And this is so different than the slave trade that went on before in Africa, where it was just, this took it to continental levels, often referred to as the triangle slave trade, etc. And this is where people were literally taken from their homes. They were bartered off. They saw ships coming and they knew like they were not coming back. So I think this is just important to understand the transatlantic slave trade because it was so different, and people had never experienced this before. Slavery was done there, and now this brought it abroad. People were in it for a profit, people were in it for money, gain, etc. For question number 3, so Charles Darwin in his Out of Africa theory just talked about the models of human evolution in general. He was really the first to propose this descent, that all humans came from a common ancestor in Africa. So everyone knows Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution, and that racial differences developed because Darwin had this theory of natural selection and survival of the fittest. And people took this as like, oh, I'm survival of the fittest, who had to be the most dominant in land, people, country, etc. So the racial differences formed off this survival of the fittest, meaning like, oh, white superiority, that whites were dominant over people of color, etc. My definition of race is, I think it's just, oftentimes we check a box like white, Hispanic, Latina, etc. And I think that race is just your ethnicity and those cultural components combined together.